Aloha, gang. Good stuff. The whole MAGA thing just shows you how out of touch and humorless that liberals and Democrats are, especially this administration. Like, just not to understand that was just such a bad choice of, like, attack on the fucking Trump and his supporters. Is just pathetic. And it's indicative of just about everything they've done. Yeah, and I'll just quickly sum up. You support Joe Biden and you're still in favor of what he's doing and wants to do, you're a fucking asshole, man. So let's just move on. So I'm going to do When I Paint My Masterpiece. Great Dylan song. One of my favorite songs of anything. Just an awesome tune. It was, I think I first heard it on the Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits Volume 2, which is a 2 CD set. First tune on there is Watching the River Flow, his collaboration with Leon Russell. Great tune, you know. What's the matter with me? I ain't got much to say. And then it was a bunch of other songs that were on other albums, which I listened to those other albums. So, but then the last 4 songs were these 4 acoustic numbers. I think it was him and maybe David Bromberg might have been accompanying him. You know, it was very sparse acoustic tunes. Crash on the Levee. You Ain't Going Nowhere, I Shall Be Released, and When I Paint My Masterpiece. And that opening to When I Paint My Masterpiece is just awesome. And there's a great movie by Penn, the Penn and Teller, where he does something Vermeer, the painter, John something Vermeer. I don't know his first name. I'm not huge on the art. But they go over how he did these paintings in the 1700s or whatever that were so lifelike, and they recreated with using mirrors, and it was just really informative. And then at the very end, they kick into Masterpiece, because he's actually supposedly a personal friend of Dylan, you know. So anyway, this is just a great tune. The imagery is just awesome, you know. Not many of us have dodged lions in the Coliseum, but I think we can all kind of get an image of that and what it might have been like to have to dodge a lion. And, following up on a hilltop, following a pack of wild geese, and, you know, not many of you are going to do that. I will be on a hilltop and have been because I'm not lazy, but a little heavy, but I'm still got the endurance and can kick it. But things you can relate, great imagery, you know, and then it's just a song of having hope and belief in yourself. You know, someday you're going to paint that masterpiece. And hopefully you have somebody with you that believes in you to share it with. So I'm still working on that, not even remotely close. People are such a disappointment. But, and I refuse to give in. But, so, you know, it's just such a relatable tune, and it's got that great, the chorus lines, you know, you can do that Dylan, you can belt it out, you know, someday. So, and the other thing, nobody interprets Dylan better than Bob Weir. I have a pretty well-informed opinion, and nobody just really got it. I mean, Jerry does a great job, but most of Jerry's, other than Quinn the Eskimo, are kind of mid-tempo, ballady, long 10, 15-minute, great songs, awesome. Like, probably my all-time favorite Grateful Dead performances are the 8 times that they performed She Belongs to Me in 1985. All slow, ragged. I mean, there's points in that song where it sounds like they may just come to a stop, but in a good way. I mean, and Jerry's solos are just, like, so emotional, you know. I'm telling you, check them out on archive.org. And, you know, just so wonderful. But nobody did it better than Bobby. Like, his version, Stuck Inside a Mobile, they did a lot. You know, there's like 8, 9, 10 verses in that. But, you know, that's the one, oh, mama. He builds it so wonderfully. You know, like on the first verse, he's just like, oh, mama. And by the last verse, he's like, ah, mama. You know, and he built it the whole time. All Along the Watchtower, he just had the right intensity when he sang it. Their version of Desolation Row, Bobby singing, you know, they just where lovely mermaids flow. And they just let it hang. Jerry doing these fills. 10 verses. Just a great time. And then also, he even did a couple versions of just like Ballad of a Thin Man, Something is happening here. They only did like 2 or 3 of those. But he just interpreted them. He does a great job, But even Just Like Tom Thumb Blues, which Phil Lesh sings, they made the songs living. They weren't museum pieces. Like, let's do a note for note interpretation. They fucking breathed, Sometimes they were more intense than others. Sometimes they were off the rails, and like Phil would, Dylan, I started out on Burgundy, but soon hit the harder stuff. Phil would be like, I started out on Heineken, which I related to because that's my favorite beer. But just living in the moment, and he'd be like, I'm going back to Foggy Bottom. I do believe I've had enough, instead of New York City. And it was just great. And allegedly even Dylan, like in the late 80s, 90s, his bands, he would give like these bootleg tapes of the Dead doing his songs because he's like, let's try and do it like this, because I think he just understood that they were just these great songs that you're playing today and they matter, not like just some museum piece, That's what so many people don't get, and great musicians, but they're too reverential to this shit. You gotta inhabit it and try and just bring emotion and like it's right there and it matters right now. Not like I need to have some perfect interpretation of this with a note for note solo. I mean, that's irrelevant. It's all got to be right then and there. That's what great artists like the Dead and Neil Young, and that's what they bring to this shit, They're in the moment. It's irrelevant how it was on the album 20 years ago. It's right then and there, and they bring you there, So, in one last note, the Dead only did the bridge, sailing around the world in a dirty gondola one time. And I was there. September 12th, 1990. The Spectrum in Philadelphia. Vince's first tour. I believe a good buddy of mine had seen him in Richfield, Ohio the week before, and I saw him there. And then I also saw him a week later in Madison Square Garden. It was during the Gulf War, because I remember on the top of the Statue of Liberty, or not the Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building was red, white, and blue, where they light it up there. But and that was like Hornsby's first or second song. It was September 18th, and I think that's either the day Hendrix was born or he died, one of those two. One of those bookends. But that was a good show. And that was a good one, too, because we took a train in from, like, somewhere in Connecticut. I was at UMass Amherst at the time. And I remember being on the train out of there. And I may have been tripping. But there was all these businessmen, it's like midnight or so, and they were all, 3-piece suits, but I just remember this one guy. He was just all fucked up, like melting in his seat. And the melting part might have been how I was seeing it, but just all fucked up. Great, nice suit on, and that was the life. Probably very intense job, and stressful, and just out for the night and getting fucked up and taking the train home and going to do it again tomorrow. It's a good time. And at the Spectrum as well, I went down from UMass with these kids, 2 of whom I kind of knew, and the kid who we drove with in his car never met till that night. But I mean, we're students at UMass. It's not like jumping in the car with some guy you bought pot from at the 7-Eleven. Which I have not done, either of those things. But it was... So I get down there, and I'm on one of those buses. The girl was called Amanda. It was 2 other, kid Joe, and I forget the guy whose car it was. But I'm on this bus, and she was crazy, as all Amandas are. And so we get on one of those buses that you see at Dead shows, any Dead attendee knows, and right away they're like, who's this guy, And she's like, oh, he's with me. And that was over quick. I just make note of that because they were right on it, because there's probably things that would not have been law enforcement approved on there. Although I did have hair then. It was kind of longish, but my hair was more like thick than grew down straight. But So anyway, end up tripping, fucking getting some good acid at that show and tripping and losing those 3 people. So I'm at this show, great show, and I end up running into these other kids from UMass, thankfully, Matt and Ira, who I kind of knew a little more. Good kids, you know. But I went home with them, so I survived, I guess, is the point of that one. So this is when I paint my masterpiece. I could go on and on just talking about that song and things related to that for a long time. So let's move on. I'm going to try and hit the strings this time. Oh, the streets of Rome are filled with rubble. Ancient footprints are everywhere. You can almost think that you're seeing double on a cold, dark night on the Spanish stairs. Got to hurry on back to my hotel room, where I got me a date with Botticelli's niece. She promised that she'd be right there with me when I paint my masterpiece. Oh, the hours I've spent inside the Colosseum, dodging lions and wasting time. Oh, those mighty kings of the jungle, I can hardly stand to see them. Well, it sure has been a long, hard climb. Train wheels rolling through the back of my memory as I ran on a hilltop, following a pack of wild geese. Someday everything is gonna be smooth like a rhapsody when I paint my masterpiece. Sailing round the world in a dirty gondola. Oh, to be in the land of Coca-Cola. I left Rome and I landed in Brussels on a plane ride so bumpy that I almost cried. Clergymen in uniform and young girls pulling muscles. Guess it's sure there to beat me when I stepped inside. Fuck that up.